Hey, you, and welcome back. Today, we're going to be talking about loving yourself after heartbreak and a few steps that you can take to rebuild that love for yourself or rebuild your confidence after it's been hurt or broken after heartbreak, after the end of a relationship. So, let's get started. I've been through several heartbreaks in my life. A couple. I have one, two. So I've had three main heartbreaks in my life, and then I've had three sub breaks. Yeah, I'm just gonna leave it at that. That's what they are. They're like sub heartbreaks where they're still painful, but you weren't actually in a relationship with that person. It wasn't until I got to my third really big heartbreak that I actually recognized a pattern, only because I researched my own feelings after a heartbreak. My therapist was actually really impressed with this, even though when I look back at it today, the heartbreak, I felt like I created this research to make it hurt less and to hold on to the relationship just a little bit longer. But it actually ended up helping me feel more confident and more open to love because I found a way to get through the heartbreak and to show myself that even if I open myself up to someone and they end up hurting me after we've been together and after that love has grown even more, I know that I'll be okay because I have a little bit of a system in a way, but it's just how I personally heal from heartbreak. And today I'm going to share that with you. And it all starts with this Google Doc. Okay, so here is the data sheet that I was telling you about. This is my breakup, my breakup data doc that I was telling you about. Here is just a brief overview. I have just some research that I did about how I was feeling in certain ways that I'll explain more later after the breakup. I also wrote down some defining moments, some things that helped me heal. I did a lot of journaling and asked myself a lot of questions to help heal from the relationship, and did even more journaling and more journaling. And then finally, I got to what happened. So, this is the breakup data that I was telling you about, but this is also I am just very glad that I created that because it gave me something to work with when it came to teaching and when it came to teaching self love after heartbreak based on my experience. So I would like to thank the individual on Facebook who gave me the idea for this episode. You know who you are. Thank you so much because this is a really powerful topic. And I do think that my experience can help whoever's out there that might be struggling with self love after heartbreak. So, my voice is a little tired from doing the first one, so bear with me here. All right, let's get started. Self love after heartbreak. Again, thank you to the person that gave me this topic, the topic of the day. I'm getting a little tired, so bear with me. All right. So this is the chart that I created based on my experiences. On the next slide over, I'll explain what each of these mean in more detail. So right here, we have the amount that I missed the individual as time went on. And then the darker blue line is my feelings, like how hurt I was after the breakup. And then finally, my self confidence, which I'll explain more later. But my self confidence in starting at a 10 is very low. My like self esteem is very low. And then coming down to a 0, it's getting more level into what it usually is or even higher. So, considering this is my first real breakup in over 3 years, I write in this breakup data doc. I have decided to track my thoughts and feelings post breakup to prove to myself that the pain of breakup and how much one misses the individual fades with time. I believe that breakups hurt less over time, and eventually you will begin to miss the person and hurt less. I also believe that your confidence will also begin to come back up after the heartbreak. So the lighter blue line represents how much I miss the individual. A 0 is no longer missing the individual. And then a 10 is, see, really going on and on in your head about how the breakup could have been avoided. What if you didn't break up? Wondering all of these things to the point that it's affecting your life. The dark blue line is my feelings opposed to what I'm thinking. So I'm no longer feeling hurt by this breakup is a 0. And then a 10 is feeling very hurt about the ending of this relationship, causing it to impact my daily life, such as crying at work or not getting my daily self care done. The red line represents self confidence. So at a 0, my self confidence is untouched by the outcome of this relationship. And by a 10, I feel unlovable and unworthy of love. So, going backwards here, at starting everything starts pretty poorly. So I miss the individual a lot. I'm feeling very hurt and my self-confidence is at the point that I feel unlovable and unworthy. Then, as time goes by, my self confidence comes back really quickly. And I do think that it is thanks to the tips that I'm about to share with you. Also, my feelings about the relationship, there's some dips and some rises, but eventually it comes back down to a pretty solid 0 really quickly. And again, I think it does have to do with my healing process just getting better. And then also, this relationship was not as long as the other ones that I had previously. And finally, missing the person lasted a little bit longer. So, missing the person, yes, was longer, but it doesn't mean that I felt hurt or that I felt like I wasn't confident anymore. It was just getting used to life after the individual. So, in the past, after heartbreaks, I my self-esteem would drop dramatically. I used to think that there was something absolutely wrong with me after being broken up with or after liking someone and not having them like me back. I always immediately turned to myself first, thinking that it was something wrong with me instead of maybe we just weren't meant to be. I went through an identity crisis after each of these heartbreaks because I would wrap myself so much in the person that I was infatuated with. And I would constantly struggle with this idea of what will my life look like without this person? Even if we weren't in a relationship, even if I just liked this person and they didn't like me back, I changed my life so much around this person and put a lot of thought and energy into them that after they were gone due to heartbreak, I just didn't know what my life would look like and who I was going to be afterwards. I bottled a lot of my emotions until they popped, and I often forced them down because I felt like it made me weak to cry over a breakup. So I didn't allow myself really to feel things until it got to the absolute breaking point. And then it was pretty bad. In my past relationships and not relationships, in all of my past heartbreaks, I played the victim role. I created an event that was so tragic and unfair because they didn't like me back or they broke up with me. And I constantly wondered, why me? I held on to hope for longer than I should have. I kept this idea in my mind that maybe they will change their mind and ask for me back. So I was hanging on just in case, which was keeping me from moving on in my life. So during this breakup data, which was about 2 years ago or so, yeah, about that, it was my third breakup that was a longer term relationship. And then also, it was one of few, I put few, but many little mini heartbreaks in between of people that I liked, but they did not like me back. And I stuck to these past um, stories or narratives. And instead, after this breakup, I decided I was ready to change the story. And that's why I created the breakup data doc. So here is what I learned in loving myself again after heartbreak, or how I learned how to love myself again after heartbreak. I found my people, I reflected and journaled, came back to myself, created new routines. I was patient, and also a few other tips that I'll share with you later at the end of the first tips. So, first, find your people. This is actually taken directly from, this is taken directly from, pause. I just want to make sure we're recording still. Okay, sweet. Okay, so this was taken directly from the breakup data doc. And so I wrote down some of the monumental moments or the defining moments after the breakup that really helped me to heal and regrow that self love. I talked to friends about the breakup, and my friends were incredibly supportive, even the friends that I weren't like the friends that I wasn't as close to as well. They were very supportive and they were there for me and they allowed me to just be and to feel my feelings. And they did say some very kind things to make me feel better. And they reminded me that I'll find someone else, that I'm amazing, that the person doesn't know what they're missing out on, which looking back, I'm not sure. Of course, they know that I'm a great person, but also they also knew that this wasn't the right relationship. And I understand that and I feel the same. They also reminded me that I'm still young. I'm very, very young and had plenty of time to find someone else. And then also that I was making room for someone better by letting go of this relationship. I also spent a lot of time talking to my therapist. We talked about the idea of them coming back and how I was just holding space for this person to come back. But my therapist recommended that I just proceed and go on with my life as if this person wouldn't come back. And that ended up being right. And it was better for that. It was better that it happened that way because I wouldn't be where I'm at right now and who I'm with right now if that didn't happen. And so we also talked about how I shouldn't take any of that personally. So not taking anything personally after a breakup is very helpful because sometimes there just isn't, you just don't click. You don't, you don't, I don't know exactly how to put this. Sometimes, whenever you're not meant to be with someone, there's just a lot of friction in a way. You don't exactly have a really nice balance, and you can feel that. Subconsciously, you really do feel that. And so, my therapist just reminded me not to take it personally because that individual felt it first. They knew that this wasn't going to work out. And so they acted on it. And it's better that they did. Next, reflect and journal. So when I did this, I did not actually use these specific prompts. Instead, I created my breakup data doc. So um, within the doc, I did show you this. There are some questions that I could have asked myself or answered without asking them. So within the data doc, these are some of the questions that arose, but not exactly. But these are questions that you can use when reflecting on the relationship or journaling about it. What drew me to this person? What characteristics did this individual have that did not match what I was looking for in a partner at that moment? What was going on in my life that may have influenced aspects of this relationship? What did I learn from this experience? How did this experience push me towards my authentic self and the life of my dreams? Taking time to really brain dump and to really just word vomit all over the page. I know those aren't pretty pictures, but that's what it feels like when you're doing it. Just giving your time to just be and let it out and write everything that you're thinking, even if you think it might sound silly. There's some things that I went back and read on my breakup data doc, and it just sounded so irrational, but I'm very glad that I wrote it because that's how I was able to process and understand the breakup better. And in turn, come back to myself, which is where I needed to be in order to start growing my self love again. And that brings us to our next part, coming back to yourself or coming home to yourself, within yourself, whatever resonates with you. And you can do this by creating routines, new routines, especially if there were a lot of routines that were taken over by your significant other, a lot of things that you guys did together. So creating new routines in this new life without them. And then even coming back to some old ones that you may have had before the relationship. Taking yourself on dates in order to get to know yourself better and to be a little playful. Spending time with your friends is very important. And then taking steps towards the life you want to live and your most authentic life. Right here, this is an excerpt from excerpt from the breakup data doc, and I wrote that one of the shifting moments was I started focusing more on school, work, and myself. This increased my self esteem and confidence. I was working out more and eating better. I had more time for me. I began to realize how good I had it before and realized that I really just wanted to be single at this moment. And I felt okay with that. I also noticed that I have a lot to offer and I'm not going to settle. The next tip is it takes time. And I know it sucks. And I am incredibly understanding. And acknowledging that if you are watching this and struggling with self love after heartbreak, I feel you and I've been there. And that's why I created all of this. So just remember that it does take time. It takes time, but it will pass. And to speed things up a little, you can try some of the tips that you learned in this video to see how that helps you heal and how it helps you start to love yourself again after heartbreak. And then here is some other tips that I took from the breakup data doc. There's some repeats of the juicy ones, and then there's also some new ones here. Yeah, buddy? Okay. I changed my thoughts. I got back into my routine, created a new routine without this individual. I surrounded myself with new people. I took a break to actually feel my feelings and to relax. And I didn't hide in my work. I didn't escape. I let myself feel it. I allowed myself to believe that this individual wasn't the only person for me, that there's more people out in the world, and that people come and go throughout your life at the perfect times. Some stay around, some leave, and that's okay. That's life. I realized what I truly wanted, and better yet, deserved. I gave myself permission to feel my feelings. And I even asked myself, how did I do this? So I can either do it again or share it with someone else who needs it, like you watching this right now. How did I do this? I remembered and well, I learned. I learned that you don't have to feel something that you think you should feel after a breakup. Sometimes we feel like after we break up with someone, we have to sit in front of the TV and watch sad movies and eat ice cream and cry and cry and cry and cry. But not all breakups are like that. And not that, that's a bad thing. I've done my fair share of that, of course. And instead of sappy romantic movies, I was watching horror films. um, but not all breakups are like that. Some breakups are a different kind of sadness. And sometimes it's not even sadness, sometimes it's relief. Whatever feelings are coming up for you, don't feel what you think you should feel. Feel what you truly feel. You don't have to force the feelings to arise when you think they should either. Allow them to come up naturally and allow them to just be. This is the last two slides, I believe, are based on just what happened after. I called this section What Happened. I got comfortable with my life without this person. I realized that I had a path without them, just as I did before them. I found a new romantic interest that treated me with more attentiveness and also allows me to feel more authentic and free, which is the person that I'm still dating today. And the cravings for this relationship ceased. And I'm okay. And actually, that might be our last slide. Yeah, that's where I left myself off. So hopefully this helped you in some way. Hopefully this, take it slowly, watch it again if you need to, and come at it with some curiosity. Maybe this is something that you haven't tried before, or most of these things are things you haven't tried before because you were like me and you stayed in this past heartbreak cycle of just dropping your self-esteem and going through identity crisis and playing the victim. And I feel you because I've been there too, of course. But maybe try a little more of this. See how it helps you get through your heartbreak. And remember that all of these things and this whole experience are going to help you get to know yourself better. So that's all I have for you today. I'm going to repeat one more time the things that I did to love myself again after heartbreak. I found my people, reflected on the relationship, and journaled. I came back to myself and created new routines. And I was patient. I also allowed myself to feel my feelings. All right. I am going to go ahead and call it a night. Thank you so much for being here today and seriously taking the time to learn more about self-love, because that is so
incredibly important. All right. So, right after this, pop on over to Past Me.
Thank you for being here today, and I'll see you next time.